So let's talk about something that sounds completely out of a science fiction novel. What if you could treat terminal cancer with just a box? It sounds impossible, right? But back in the 1940s, a controversial figure named Wilhelm Reich claimed he could do exactly that. This is the incredible and very strange story of his Orgone cancer trial.
I mean, really think about that for a second. A simple box with layers of wood and metal with absolutely nothing else inside. How could that possibly work against one of the deadliest diseases we know? Well, Reich was absolutely convinced he was onto something. So today, we're going to dive into the story of his Orgone accumulator and the genuinely surprising results he got with patients everyone else had already given up.
Okay, so to even begin to understand how this box was supposed to work, we have to get our heads around the radical idea at its core. It all comes down to this mysterious, universal life force that Reich called Orgone energy. So what is Orgone? Well, for Reich, this wasn't some vague spiritual concept. He believed it was a real, physical, measurable energy, like a blue glowing life force that's in everything, in the atmosphere, in all living things. And his big idea about cancer was that it wasn't just a rogue tumor. No, he saw it as a disease of the entire body, what he called a biopathy. It's like the body's own energy field was just giving up, shrinking, and dying.
Right, so a reanimating fever. How exactly was this supposed to reverse that dying process? The key here, and this is really important, is that Reich wasn't trying to attack the cancer directly. Instead, he wanted to re-energize the entire body, to create a state he called cellular illumination, basically getting the body's cells to glow with life again.
Here's the game plan. The Orgone accumulator, the box, it basically acts like a sponge for this atmospheric energy. Then the patient sits inside, and their own energy field starts to interact with all that concentrated energy. This interaction is supposed to excite the patient's cells, leading to a gentle, low-grade, artificial fever. And that fever was the whole point. It was supposed to supercharge the body's own red blood cells, empowering them to fight back. It's not an external attack like radiation. It's about boosting the body's internal army.
But, this wasn't some smooth ride to a miracle cure. Not at all. In fact, the experiment pretty much immediately slammed into two huge and very, very different roadblocks that showed just how complicated this whole thing was.
And the first problem was, well, it was a problem of success, which sounds weird, right? Basically, when the therapy worked really well and just obliterated a big tumor, the patient's body actually couldn't handle the cleanup. Yeah, so the therapy would break the tumor down, but that created all this dead, toxic junk, what Reich called tumor debris. And the body's organs, the liver and kidneys, they just got totally overwhelmed trying to filter it all out. It's a tragic irony, really. Some patients died not from the cancer, but from this secondary poisoning caused by its destruction. This is where Reich realized, okay, this therapy is most promising for early-stage cancer, when the tumors are smaller and the cleanup job is more manageable.
So dealing with tumor debris, that's a physical, mechanical problem. But the second obstacle, this one was way deeper. And this is where Reich's background as a psychoanalyst really comes into play. Just listen to this case. Biologically, the therapy was a huge success. Her blood work was normal, the tumor was shrinking, everything was looking up. But she had no will to live. The treatment started reawakening physical sensations, this life energy, and it just freaked her out. It caused so much anxiety that she quit. It's like she had already made her peace with dying, and the feeling of life returning was just too much to handle. And here's another one just as heartbreaking. This patient's physical cancer symptoms were gone, but she had a severe neurosis, a phobia about taking the subway, and an unsupportive family. It created this psychological wall she just couldn't get over to continue treatment. She quit and died a year later. It was a really powerful lesson. You can't just heal the body. If the mind, the emotions, the person's whole life isn't ready for healing, it just won't stick.
Okay, so despite all those huge, devastating setbacks, there was also incredible evidence of hope. We're talking about results that were, frankly, unbelievable for patients who had basically been given a death sentence. Take patient ST, for example. She had breast cancer that had spread to her legs, and she couldn't even walk. She gets in this box, and in 10 days, the tumors in her leg completely disappear. She's walking around, pain-free, doing chores. X-rays even showed her pelvic cancer was calcifying, a sign of healing. And get this, 2 years after the trial, she was still alive and doing well. Or how about this guy, patient FH? He was literally starving to death because a tumor in his esophagus meant he could only swallow liquids. After the treatment, not only could he eat again, we're talking soft meat and soup, but his blood work went from a severe 95% T reaction all the way down to a normal 10%. He gained weight, he went back to work, and just like the last patient, 2 years later, still alive.
So those are the incredible individual stories. But what happens when we zoom out and look at the final tally for the entire trial? What does the data actually say?
The numbers are pretty striking. So looking at the 14 patients who really saw the treatment through, for 11 of them, it made a huge difference. 6 of them got an extra 5 to 12 months of life, and with a better quality of life at that. And for 5 of them, the cancer's progress was just stopped in its tracks. They were still around more than 2 years later. For people told they had weeks or months to live, that's significant. But here's what might be the most mind-blowing stat of all. Forget about who lived and for how long for a second. Look at this. Every single patient, all 15 of them, experienced some kind of dramatic positive effect. 100% of them had major pain relief, to the point they could cut back or even stop taking morphine. 100% of them saw their tumors either shrink or get softer, and 100% of them had their blood tests get way, way better. That level of consistency is just incredible. So let's be clear, the Orgone accumulator was not a miracle cure for cancer. But for Wilhelm Reich, these results were all the proof he needed. They confirmed he was on a vital path, but they also left him wrestling with one enormous unanswered scientific question. And that was the final challenge. How can the debris of a destroyed tumor be eliminated without harming the patient? You see, that one question just perfectly captures the entire dilemma of his research. It shows the tantalizing potential, but also the very real danger. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What does this strange story tell us about the complex relationship between the body, the mind, and the very definition of what it means to heal?